Boys, UFC 302, the main event and co-main event just got announced during the UFC 300 post-fight conference. And so far, we only have 3 confirmed fights on that card. The main event, of course, being Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier. Co-main event, Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa. Then there's only one more fight already confirmed on this card, which was Roman Dolidze versus Anthony Hernandez. Now, it didn't say where it's going to be on the card. I just put it the 3rd fight on the main card. But with all that being said, we are going to make a stacked UFC 302 card. Again, these are all the confirmed fights so far. I'm sure as the days go by, a few other fights will be announced. But like I said, as of right now, as of recording this, these are the 3 fights announced. So pretty much we're going to start with the featured fight of the main card and then move our way down all the way to the opener of the prelims. I'll give you my reasons for every single one of these fights. And again, I'm trying to make it as stacked as possible, but at the same time, as realistic as possible. So starting it off, I have in our featured fight a title eliminator in the welterweight division, which is Shavkat Rakhmonov versus JDM. Again, JDM has been calling for this fight. I think in his last 2 fights, he's called for the Rakhmonov fight. So these two are both really high on the rankings. I think they're going to do Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad in the meantime, probably in the next upcoming pay-per-views. And once that's out of the way, we need another title contender. Now, Shavkat Rakhmonov is high up on the list for the next title shot, but again, it's going to take some time once the Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad fight is over for the winner of that fight to fight the next contender. So in the meantime, let's get the number 1 contender sorted out. So Shavkat Rakhmonov versus JDM. This would be such a nice matchup. I don't think anyone would complain about this. I was trying to find a matchup that would be good enough to be the featured fight, and I think this is perfect. This could honestly even be like a co-main event on a pay-per-view. But moving on, the second fight of the main card. Again, another title eliminator. I have Kai Kara France, the number 4 ranked flyweight in the world, against the number 7th ranked Muhammad Mokaev, undefeated. Mokaev is coming into here undefeated, lots of hype around him, but there's been a lot of questions against Mokaev, if he's even that great, if he's just had a bunch of fluky wins, so this is a great test for him. Plus, if Mokaev can pull off this win, it would give him the next shot of Alexander Pantoja versus Steve Erceg. Let's be real, flyweight division is a mess right now. So again, trying to get another number 1 contender for the champion. I think this would be a great matchup. And then moving up to the opener of the UFC 302. This might be a little controversial just because of how stinky his last performance was on UFC 300. But again, we need to get rid of one of these grapplers, and I think this is the most logical next fight for both of these fighters, and that is obviously Ortega versus Sterling, T-City versus the Funkmaster. I think this should have been the original fight for Aljamain Sterling moving up to 145 at UFC 300, but they gave him someone like Calvin Kattar. He easily got through Calvin Kattar. Now we have to give him a more of a test. Unfortunately, right now, Sterling is only ranked number 8 in the division, while Brian Ortega is ranked number 3, so might be a little bit far-fetched offering Brian Ortega this fight, but this could be, again, another title eliminator, another number 1 contender at featherweight. Pretty much what I did for a lot of these fights, especially on the main card. Really what I did for a lot of these fights on the main card was do some title eliminators, some high stake fights. And this one, obviously a high stake matchup. Ortega is looking for that championship belt, but I don't think he's deserving enough to get another crack at the title. Same thing with Sterling. Only beating someone like a Calvin Kattar isn't going to give him the justified reason to get at the next title shot. Although I think it is mad dirty only putting Sterling at number 8. I think this is a perfect matchup for the featherweight division. Obviously, if either one of these guys wins, they are right up there. If not, they're the next fighter for the champion. But let's keep moving on. The prelims, not as much thought went into these as a main card, obviously, but still some thought went into them. Like this one, a heavyweight fight to end off the prelims. Typically, this is what they do. They end off the prelims with a heavyweight fight, and I think a good matchup, one that's a fresh matchup for each fighter. Spivak versus Rozenstruik. Originally, I wanted to do Derek Lewis versus Rozenstruik, but Lewis is scheduled to fight relatively soon. I don't think he'll be able to make that quick of a turnaround. Sergey Spivak, ranked number 9 in the heavyweight division. Rozenstruik, ranked number 11. A great matchup for both of these fighters. And yeah, a fresh matchup, not a rematch of any sorts, but I think this would be a great addition to UFC 302. Moving on, we have someone who called their shot and wanted to be on the May 11th card, but I don't think we're going to put him on the May 11th card. I think we're going to put him on the prelims of a UFC pay-per-view card, and that is Joaquin Buckley taking on Geoff Neal. Buckley ranked 11, Geoff Neal ranked 9. Both of these guys should be ready to go for UFC 302. I didn't want to give Buckley someone too high up the ranking considering he just got into the rankings, so I'm only giving him someone who's ranked one more above him in the rankings. Plus, after Geoff Neal, everyone above him is a very terrible stylistic matchup for him. I'm not gonna lie, Geoff Neal is probably the only one that he could realistically get past. After this, it's nothing but like death row for him. So giving him Geoff Neal, I think that's the best bet for him, unless you want to go down the rankings, but he just got into the rankings. Let's try to keep him there for now. Moving on, we have a women's fight because of course we have to have some kind of women's fight in this UFC pay-per-view. I'm hoping this is the women's fight they do choose to put on UFC 302. If not, I guarantee it's not going to be anywhere as good as this one. But we have Ribas versus Cortez. There might be some beef going on in the background between Tracy and T-City, but it is what it is. Tracy Cortez ranked 11, Amanda Ribas ranked number 9. They both haven't fought each other yet. It's a good, fresh, stylistic matchup for both fighters. Both of them haven't fought in a good amount of time, so 302 should be a good time for them to come back into the octagon, put on a show. A good jump up the rankings for Tracy Cortez. Plus, I'm trying to do the fans some favor by putting her on this card because we all know why. Definitely one of the most popular women in the UFC, so put her on UFC 302 on the second fight of the prelims. But opening up the prelims, we have another welterweight fight, which is gonna be Jake Matthews taking on Phil Rowe. Just like a good fight on the card, you know, it's nothing special, just something to mix into there. We don't want to overly stack UFC 302 because we have to put some other guys on this list. Jake Matthews, one of the more favorited fighters that is more of a no-name compared to like the casual fans. Regardless, this would be a great matchup. I could see this being a really good showcasing for Jake Matthews. But let's move over to the early prelims, the main event of the early prelims. I have someone who just recently went into the lightweight division, a more popular fighter, which is going to be Chase Hooper taking on Rick Glenn. Chase Hooper starting to get a little bit more of a name value to him, but not enough to put him anywhere higher on this list in my opinion. Opening up the early prelims, Chase Hooper versus Ricky Glenn. A good stylistic opponent for Chase Hooper, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, moving down to the rest of this list, there's not as much thought and in-depth reasonings of why they should be on this list. At the end of the day, now it's just trying to fill out the card. So moving on, we have Dawson taking on Kutateladze. Dawson coming off that pretty humiliating loss against Bobby Green, so we are punishing him all the way down to the early prelims. Kutateladze, someone who is thought to be a next high up-and-comer, coming off 2 back-to-back losses, so putting him down here, it's a good matchup, pretty much punishing both fighters, putting them on their early prelims. But regardless, moving on, we have Quinones versus Yahya, trying to put some like Russians and Americans on this card, obviously because it's headlined by Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier. That was my main reason why putting these guys on. But moving down, last fight on the list, again, some Americans, some Russians. We have Reed versus Dudakova, some relatively unknown fighters, but who else better to open up the early prelims on this card than some unknown women's fighters? But yeah, is this the most stacked fight in the world? No, we don't want to be unrealistic when we stack these cards and putting just banger after banger after banger after banger on this card. This is, in my opinion, a very stacked, realistic UFC 302 card. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys agree? If any of these fights do happen, not including the ones that already have been officially confirmed, which ones would you be most excited for? In my opinion, that Shavkat Rakhmonov versus JDM is such a crazy fight. I would love for that fight to be official. Same thing with Ortega versus Sterling. I think that's an amazing matchup. Pretty much that whole main card is nothing but bangers in my opinion. But let me know in the comments below, is there a fight that you would switch out for another one? Am I missing someone that should be on this list? Thank you guys for all of the support recently. Just by leaving a like on this video helps me out so much. With that YouTube algorithm, you have no idea. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching to the end of the video. If you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe with those post notifications turned on so you never miss any of my newest videos. And yeah, there's really not that much else left to say, except for I will see you guys in my next video.